Welcome to George Gently behind John Bacchus. It's just an interesting character, you know. Because carried over from the pilot where he's lost his wife. I mean, any actor finds resistance exciting and important. In other words, where you've got to be feeling one thing and showing another. But at the same time, you can't completely hide the thing that you're feeling, because otherwise it would be invisible to the audience.
I'd always wanted to do like a crime drama, I think, and I always usually play sort of villains and drug addicts and stuff, and I just thought it was quite nice to, you know, try it from the uniform side of things. And there was something in the writing of John Bacchus. I thought, you know, he wasn't a kind of a typical sidekick. I don't think he was. There was a bit more to him, a bit more balls.
I always saw Gently and Bacchus as a sort of 1960s Holmes and Watson. I think it's a fantastic double act. The obvious thing is to say that Gently is the old-fashioned guy and Bacchus is the young guy looking forward, but it's much more complicated than that. Bacchus has a lot of very conservative attitudes, where Gently, having come from London and seen the world, is a lot more liberal in cases, but at the same time, Bacchus has the flash cars and the flash clothes. Gently is a little more conservative that way. But I think what really, really brings people back to the show again and again is the relationship between Gently and Bacchus, and that is all Martin Shaw and Lee Ingleby.
It's been great working with both of them, actually. I've worked with Lee before. Some years ago he did an episode of Dale and Pascoe when he was much younger. I was a bit younger as well. Martin and I first met about 1968 or 69 back in London at the Royal Court Theatre in Chelsea. I don't think we've ever worked together, but we've known each other a hell of a long time. And doing the show with those two guys and the rest of the cast, a great cast on this. It's been a lot of fun.
I have terrible chemistry. I can't stand him and he can't stand me. I don't know where you got this on-stream chemistry idea.
Brilliant.
See what I mean?
Working with Martin is pretty hellish, to be honest. He's not a nice guy. He steals the limelight.
It was obvious right from the beginning that he was the one for the job. He's unusual. I mean, apart from being a very good actor, he's an unusual actor. And there are not many sort of really unusual actors these days who make choices in their work that surprise you, and Lee is one of them. And he's also a sickeningly nice person. Yeah, there is an on-stream chemistry. We make each other laugh and we go on very well.
It's great working with Martin. We seem to get on really well. We have done since day one, really. We just sort of we just clicked, I think, which is great because we work together quite a lot. And I think we just find the sense of fun within it. You know, even though sometimes you're dealing with very dark and quite intense scenes sometimes, but I think, you know, offset we're able to have a laugh and you know and just have a bit of a giggle, and then when we get on set, you know, we talk about the scenes and we're able to bounce off each other. It's great because Martin will always say, you know, if there's anything you want to sort of throw at me, any surprises, I'll just work with it, which is great to hear, you know, and it's great to be able to do that.
One thing that makes George Gently a little different from other jobs is obviously the 1960s period setting. So, particularly in terms of art department, there's a lot of attention to detail.
I do all the set plans and I specify exactly what I want in these sets. Every single detail is put on a drawing plan and then it's modelled if it's needed.
A lot of time and effort goes into the look of George Gently. You only have to look at the costumes and the art department, as I said, for the attention to detail that those guys go to. We're sitting in Gently's office now. I mean, there are props in the drawers. You know, let's put some here. Okay, here you go. Diary from 1966. Postcards from Venice, because Gently's wife was Italian. Napoli, map of Napoli. That's the level of detail that is sort of given in that department.
Our designer is absolutely brilliant, and his attention to detail is actually very moving. You know, when I open a drawer in my office, things that the audience will never see, that only I will see. The drawer is full of material appropriate to my character. Invitations to police dues. My lighter is inscribed to George from Isabella, who's my dead wife. You know. All that stuff is very important because it not only makes you feel that you owe something back in respect and attention to detail, but also it puts you into that mindset of where you are supposed to be.
A lot of these props were built. I have a great prop buyer, Dominic Smithers. He scours the northeast and then eventually to London, on mad car journeys, hours on end, and brings most of it back.
It's really important in a drama set in the 60s to avoid the obvious, I think, because the 60s really weren't as people imagine. People didn't really live. If you look at these houses we're doing, most people didn't live the 60s dream of Carnaby Street.
Well, for all departments, costume, makeup, design, it's obviously very important, and a lot of research has to go into the period. I mean, whether it's a Regency drama or Victorian, or it's only 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there's still a lot of work involved in researching. I mean, that's the great thing, not only from my point of view, but every department. And like I said earlier, just sitting in this office, it's quite nostalgic because, and you do think, just looking here, it's only 30, 40 years ago, but there's no computers, there's a typewriter there, there's an old telephone, and carbon paper I saw the other day. Now, a lot of people would not know what carbon paper is, but it's all those details that just help to make it authentic.
Set design and the props and costumes and the makeup, it just adds to, you get the script, and the script's so rich with all this history anyway, and then they just make it sort of from a black and white into a sort of like a colour landscape, and it just brings it to life, and the attention to detail, I think, is incredible, and everything looks worked in and lived in and just looks right.
We wanted, certainly with the students, we wanted to keep people looking as real as possible, as in keeping people really rooted and not looking as if they were costumed in 60 clothes as such, but they looked like they really were their real clothes, and I think that was very important, and that's something that both everyone sort of felt quite strongly about. All of these sorts of references and these were all to do with the students, and that was, but not that, because that just didn't feel right. This is great here, which is early. It is earlier, but we've had, in terms of the sort of tenements for one of the films and the work, all of this reference has just been fabulous, because it just gives you an essence of sort of just real people, which is exactly what we wanted to just keep it as real as possible. So yeah, this was very much a sort of starting point.
For this, we want a very kind of working class feel to it. I don't want it to look too glamorous, so we're trying to make it look real. So I just go to the reference library, look back over books, the internet's great for reference, and do my research that way. I have a very clear idea of how I want it to look and how the producers and directors want it to be. We want it to look very realistic. It's set in 1966 against the backdrop of the World Cup, and so a lot of, that's a time that is very memorable for most people, so we have to make sure that we get it just right, because a lot of people can still remember that time.
Today is one of the biggest days on the shoot for us. As you can see, we've got a steam train here, which has been a little bit tricky to set up, in as much as we've had to do roadblocks. We've got the police out here to help us. The train will move backwards and forwards up the track, and we'll then find a body which will be thrown from the bridge up there beyond that steam.
So today we're shooting a scene where Gently and Bacchus arrive at what looks like a guy who's thrown himself in front of a train, but of course it reveals itself to be a bit more complicated than that. We're setting up now for a shot where the train driver sees something on the tracks and pulls the brake. So we have a little Canon camera set up on the tracks. The train's going to pass over that. So at the same time we're doing a shot from up on the bridge, a wide shot of the train coming through. So yeah, very exciting.
Basically, we've got a few cameras on today. What you were seeing earlier was the Canon stills camera, but it also takes HD movies. So we're using that for under the train because it's only £2,500 compared with probably £75,000 of the main camera.
What's going on today is Lee is going to look clever for once.
For once. I always look clever. I just look dumb to make him look even more clever.
Which is very necessary.
It's,
no, there's a body on the tracks, and it's meant to look like it's suicide. But
there's more to it than that. He's the suspect, and we think we're getting one way, and there's another curveball.
The coaches we're using today are from the late 50s, early 60s, and they represent a true record of the time that Gently is being filmed.
I think it's great now it's actually been brought back to the authentic location, which is in Durham. Though I didn't get involved with the Irish side, it's great to actually, able to put the characters in the landscape, have the cathedral there, have the Northumberland coast. So yeah, I think it just adds that little bit of extra authenticity, really. and you know, you can actually see them, and I think it gives it a little bit more credibility, the fact that it is actually the place that, you know, where it's set.
But I think the move to Durham is absolutely is brilliant. It, you know, it really shows Durham for what it is, beautiful city, and it's the locations, I think, are a lot more rewarding.
It has given the show a whole sort of shot in the arm in terms of visual appearance. I think if you know, when we were in Ireland, we were fairly restricted by what they could do in terms of turn the camera around and get big wide shots of scenery and buildings such as the castle in Durham and the university in Durham. And certainly I hope that the stuff that we found in Durham and the fact that they brought the show to Durham has given it a bit of a new lease of life.
It's made an enormous difference. It's not that we didn't love being in Ireland, which we did, and in particular the Irish crew, which were great to have around us. It made a much bigger difference than I had expected, actually, coming here. Because I was quite prepared to imagine that we were in Durham, but actually being here and in the right place, it's just been... I mean, I think it helps that Durham is such a beautiful city, and I'd never been here before. And there is definitely an atmosphere. I'm very sensitive to atmosphere anyway. And there's a very, very profound atmosphere here, and it's compact. You know, as they used to say in the 60s, small is beautiful.